The story I am going to share today is based on a true Japanese urban legend, the story of Hachishakusama, also known as the famous The 8 Feet Tall Woman. So let's go back to 2008. A Japanese man shared one of his childhood terrifying experience in a post online. And according to his post, in a summer vacation when he was still a teenager, he went back to his hometown to visit his grandparents as usual. But when he looked back today, this summer has totally changed his point of view towards this world. So during this time, in a very random normal afternoon, because this village is very beautiful, so he was chilling and playing in his backyard by himself. So far, everything was peaceful and quiet. Suddenly, he heard a very strange sound. This sound was like "pop, pop, pop," slowly coming from the outside of his backyard. And along with this very strange sound, he saw a very tall woman. This woman wearing a big white hat and a long white dress, standing outside of the yard. And the woman stared at him, and he heard that the strange sound was coming from her. I have to mention that the wall of his yard was at least about 2 meters height, but he could still see this woman's head and her upper body, which making it clear that this woman was extremely tall. After watching him for a moment, the woman turned and slowly walked away. So at dinner, the boy told his grandparents about what he saw in the backyard this afternoon. And when his grandparents heard about it, they suddenly put their chopsticks down and stopped eating. The boy noticed that their faces turned very pale and they looked very scared. And his grandfather immediately went to a different room to make a phone call. Because, as it turns out, what the boy had encountered this afternoon was the famous Hachishakusama. It was a very well-known story within their village. In fact, several villagers also had seen her over the past decades, and who had encountered her are all men. And strangely, they were all disappeared or died shortly after. All witnesses described this woman as a tall, thin woman in a white dress and big hat, standing at least 2 meters tall. So his grandparents quickly locked the boy in a room upstairs and also called the village priest. And when the priest came, she placed amulets and sea salts around that room, and she warned the boy, no matter what happens tonight, do not leave this room. Also, no matter who calls your name, do not respond. Then she left and leaving the boy alone in the room. As the night fell, the boy was feeling a bit boring, so he was watching TV in the room to pass time. And when he almost about to fall asleep, suddenly he heard someone was knocking the window. And after that, the strange sound he heard in the afternoon, like "pop, pop, pop," also coming from outside of the window again. Then the boy got scared and tried to peeking through the curtain. Then he saw this Hachishakusama standing there. And at the same time, he heard his grandfather calling his name from downstairs. He is telling him to come out of the room if he's really scared. Although the boy at that time, he was very terrified, but he remembered what the priest is warning, so he tried his best to resist the urge to respond. The sound grew louder and closer, and he felt as if she might break in the window at any moment. So finally, he spent the entire night shivering in his biggest fear. Here comes the next morning. The boy, his grandparents, the priest, and 9 other different men from the village, they all got into a van, with the boy seated in the middle. The priest gave the boy an amulet and demanding him to keep his eyes closed during the entire time, no matter what he heard. So as the van drove off, the priest started to chant prayers. Soon, the boy heard that familiar boop, boop, boop sound coming from outside the window again. Because what happened last night, so he couldn't resist and open one of his eyes. Then he saw Hachishakusama's dress moving alongside with the van and also hearing her fingers tapping on the window. And the priest noticed and loudly yelled at the boy to keep his eyes shut. All the men in the van remained silent as the chanting continued. Eventually, the strange sound finally faded, and the priest signed in relief, announcing to all of them that we had finally escaped. So the boy opened his eyes. Then he saw that his amulet had already turned black. As it turns out, it was the priest's trick to let those 9 men all got on the bus because she's trying to confuse Hachishakusama in order to protect the boy. So to these days, the boy has never returned to that village, not even for his grandfather's funeral, because the fear of Hachishakusama still haunts him every day. Hachishakusama, she is still searching for her next victim. After the story was posted, there were numerous reports of sighting across Japan, especially in the northeastern areas. All of them made Hachishakusama became a very famous urban legend. So that's the story of the famous Japan Hachishakusama. I hope you guys like it and see you next time. Bye!